Hello?
On a June night in 1980, Friday the 13th, 12 of her friends were murdered. Why should Friday the 13th, 1981 be any different? Friday the 13th, Part 2. The body count continues. 14.
All doomed. You're all doomed.
15.
God.
16.
Help!
17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23.
Sandra? Jeff?
The day you count on for terror is not over. Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and other podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie, and find us on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Delvecchio. With me, as always, is Dan Aquino and Mark Myers. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, friends.
Hello, everyone. Guys, so with the new year here, and I have my first new experience of the year, and I feel it's something we all do have happen at one point.
Anal.
But it was
I was going to say, is this going to get sexual?
No. I would just play the I Just Had Sex song if we were going to.
Well, I didn't know if this was going to go like off the, way into left field.
No. It's probably now even going to be less now that we
went there.
Went there.
You're welcome for ruining your
So, in short, my job changed offices. So now everything, I'm in a brand new office building and all that. And for the first couple days that I've been there, it like just feels weird, and it feels like you're like on vacation. I don't know if anybody, I'm assuming most people feel that way, or is it just me? I mean, I guess this would go for like a new house or apartment. Like it just doesn't feel like this is like the place you're going to be for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Do you have your old chair, or do you have to form a whole new ass groove?
It's a whole new chair.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It took years to get that ass groove going.
I think that's the problem.
Once you get the ass groove, you'll feel like you're at home.
It was just a weird thing. It's like sort of, I like certain mannerisms, like the way my desk was situated of how to talk to people and look at things. And now I'm just like sitting in a different direction, and it's just weird. It feels like we're going back to the other office, right, Mom?
Your feng shui is thrown off.
Yeah, that's it. Was Mercury in retrograde recently or anything like that?
I bet it was. And you're a Virgo, so that definitely coincided with that. So
It's a little bit off.
I don't know any of these things, Mark. You just got to go with it, man. I don't know these things.
Mark turned yes and into no period.
Full stop. I'm out of here.
The first of many mutes tonight, as I am recovering from a cold. So,
Mark, what are you? You're not a Pisces? I don't.
Cancer.
Yeah,
Cancer.
There's two cancers on this podcast.
Cancerian.
Cancerian.
It sounds better than saying I'm a Cancer.
I'm not saying either of you are a cancer on this podcast. I'm kind of piggybacking off of what Anthony said. It's better to not say cancer.
Don't worry, Dan. I fully embrace my cancer of this podcast.
Currently the Rona of this podcast.
Yeah.
Currently the Rona. Yeah. So anyway.
Yes. We actually have a podcast to talk about and a movie to talk about. And this week is the first Friday the 13th that we'll be releasing an episode. We used to record and release on Thursdays, and now we're releasing on Fridays. So this is the first week where it all lines up for a Friday the 13th. So what better way to celebrate than watching a Halloween movie? No, we watched Friday the 13th.
I feel like you changed this to make sure this happened at some point.
Yeah, let's say that this was all according to plan, because that's me.
Now, I was going to make a remark that this is 2 weeks in a row where we audibled, essentially.
That's true.
Right? Because Supergirl, I audibled, and then you had the foresight. Oh, Friday the 13th is coming up, and let's do that. So both really good switches. We're getting better at this podcasting thing.
You know, I think the next 200 episodes, that's when we're really going to hit our stride.
Yeah, I think we're in our groove now. It only took 3 years, but and many failed podcast attempts to really get going.
Yeah, this wasn't our first attempt at greatness. It's just the one that stuck. But anyway, yes, we watched Friday the 13th Part 2, because we've already talked about Friday the 13th Part 1 back 2 or 3 31 Days of Horror ago. So,
you did an article on it, because I was kind of remembering. I thought we had watched the Friday the 13th for the podcast, but
we watched, I believe it was a poll results. We watched Friday the 13th, the original.
Okay, so some of the stuff that I was remembering from this one. Okay, go on.
Because we talked about the snake that gets dead.
Yeah,
that gets dead.
Yeah,
it gets all deaded up. Yeah, that was a real snake.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we talked at length about that. But there's no dead snakes in this. There's a pulverized dog that is not Muffin.
Oh, what a weird twist.
Right?
What was the point of that?
There's a second Shih Tzu walking around the woods.
The same exact color, same exact it's an exact duplicate of Muffin.
Yeah. But let's be honest, Muffin wouldn't survive even with no Jason. That thing would get picked up by a hawk in no time.
Yeah, something's gonna get that.
Those types of dogs are not long for the wilderness.
They're too pampered.
Yeah, I tell that to my dogs every day.
You're lucky you're not out in the wilderness.
You guys are not outside dogs. But Friday the 13th Part 2, where are you guys coming from with it? Dan, start with you.
Okay, so I've seen this movie plenty of times. It's not... Friday the 13th has never really been my series. I'm not a big Jason fan. I've always been more of a Freddy guy. I've always enjoyed Nightmare on Elm Street more, just because you can do more with that character. Jason is a very one-note character, just stalking the woods. He somehow shows up where it's impossible for him to show up. I like his look when he gets the mask, the hockey mask. But in the first two, it's very clumsy. I do admit I miss the overall look of these kinds of movies. Very cheaply made. Actors making bare minimum, I'm sure, for these movies, and it's like TNA and gore. So good old fashioned slasher flicks. I will say I bet, and I never thought about it until I watched it for the podcast. Like a whole generation of kids just had their sexual awakening during Friday the 13th Part 2. You got Kristen Baker and Amy Steele, who play some of the teenagers, the camp counselors. And I was a little surprised. 46 minutes into the movie, where you get your first boob shot, and I think it's your only boob shot in this movie. But so I was a little surprised by that. But neither here nor there. Overall, I can't say that I'm a huge fan of this movie. I respect what Jason did for the horror genre as a whole, but to me, he's kind of boring again, he's got the machete. He'll kill people with some sorts of creativity, but not very often will you get something other than like a stabbing or he'll slash you across the head. Not a whole lot of range for Jason, but it's passable. I'll say that.
Mark, what about you? Where are you coming from? Friday the
Yes.
13th Part 2.
Yeah, so as I've said many times on the podcast, these are the type of horror movies I like watching. The goofy, campy slashers. The really gross and intense stuff I'll watch, but they don't do it for me as much as these movies do. Just probably because the way they're made, like jumping off Dan's point about it being like actors making minimum and just the bad acting moments and or the times when you can tell they're trying really hard but it's not coming off well. Those things make it fun for me. And the one thing that I do like about these late 70s, early 80s movies is that they're really good at building tension without doing too many tricks to it. Like, for example, the opening scene with the, I guess the girl from the last movie, when she's, walking towards the window, and then the cat jumps in, instead of, who everybody thinks is the killer. Just the way the music builds and the way they slowly walk in, and it being like the old film and all that, just it makes me a little more tense than watching a little bit like better produced movie nowadays. Maybe that's just weird for me, but yeah, that's what I really liked about this, and also the fact here that they didn't specifically lay out most of the tropes for horror movies. I enjoyed, like, I don't think there was any mention, unless if I missed it from Jenny, of her being, a virgin or anything like that. There's probably evidence to the contrary on there. So
Paul are fucking.
Yeah.
Like hardcore. Like big time.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so she's the one, that survives, but it's not the trope reason why. And then, I just like how, they had the guy in the wheelchair and, didn't like make him too many butts of the joke to make you roll your eyes in 2023. But yeah, for a sequel to a movie like this, I think they did a good job of, keeping a lot of what's good about the first one and having it here, but changing up some of the stuff. And as the one Letterboxd review said, I do really like that Jason's pretty much a big doofus in this movie. And, at times is not really scary at all. And it's kind of lends until like probably the very end. And that's probably what lends to the sequels, I guess, trying to make him scarier. Maybe that was like a note that he was too silly and not scary to it. But yeah, overall, I like the movie. I am definitely more of a fan of like this and Nightmare on Elm Street than I am the more obscure movies of this time period.
As for me, I prefer this over the original. I think there's big step forward in this one from the original. I love the movies that he is kind of just a goon, where you forget because he's always like this omnipresent thing in the later films where he just pops up without any explanation of how he got where he is. And I think through the fourth one, you're still like seeing him. You'll still shots of him just like stumbling around and just being a big old goon, stomping around the woods and stuff. I think that stays through the fourth. I think this might be my second favorite in the series. I think the fourth one is the best, which is crazy to say that a fourth film is the best. But this one's good. It's good. Dan mentioned the TNA aspect of it, and I think here is one of the most iconic of the series with what's her name? Kirsten Baker.
Yeah.
With the Mickey Mouse shirt. I think that's a pretty, and the short shorts. So that's almost iconic, which is a weird thing to say.
Her clothes were doing their best to cover up.
Yeah, they're holding on for dear life.
Very much so.
And I was just reading, apparently there was supposed to be another sex scene, and that would have been Sandra and Jeff. But apparently Sandra was underage at the time.
That's a
So they
problem.
had to cut it,
Well,
according
at
to
least
my review of this movie on the website.
so that's better than. Did you hear that story about what was it? Romeo and Juliet. There was oh, I forget
The
who was in it.
original.
Yeah, and they were
Um,
both 16 at the time or something like that, or 15.
The
So,
girl from Black Christmas. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
yeah, I mean, the story came out maybe earlier in the week or last week. Yeah, I guess it's good that the director had the foresight to say, nope, can't do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't catch a charge.
No,
Was
no,
that-
no.
Was Jeff and Sandra, right? Was that the couple that got the spear through them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, because it was weird how that was cut around, so it makes sense now.
Yeah. Yeah, these they're it's pretty standard. This is probably the blueprint, really, more than anything for the next ones, because obviously the first one doesn't have Jason as a killer. So this is really the kind of the blueprint, and obviously he doesn't have his mask yet.
Does
And we
he use them? It just remind me. Sorry, brain not working. Does he use the machete exclusively from here on out? Is this the one movie where he uses like guerrilla warfare style? What's around him?
Axes, machete. I think he kills someone with a fence post from the cemetery out in one of them.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I think he's pretty versatile in what he picks up and uses.
yeah,
It's all melee stuff.
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
So okay, I know the most famous thing is or at least for me, is the crushing the girl's skull after putting it in liquid nitrogen.
Right. I mean, that's Jason
Jason
X. That
Yeah.
plays by its own rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he
It's
does-
mostly the machete, right?
Yeah, I mean that's his
Bread and
favorite
butter.
weapon.
Sure.
If it was Skyrim, that's what would pop up.
Right.
I'm assuming it's more Michael then, right?
Michael uses a kitchen knife
knife.
more than anything.
Yeah.
He's really boring. Michael might be the most boring one.
Probably. Yeah.
'Cause, he's just going after one person usually, whereas Jason at least will expand to whomever's in the vicinity. He's just you put him on a path, he'll go. Where Michael's just kind of up until the newer trilogy, I guess.
hmm
But the old Michael was, I want whoever's a part of my family, essentially.
So, Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981, directed by Steve Miner. It was directed Friday the 13th Part 3, House, Soul Man, Forever Young, My Father the Hero, Halloween H2O, and Lake Placid. Stars Betsy Palmer, Amy Steele, John Fury, Adrian King, Kirsten Baker, Stuart Charno, Warrington Gillette, Walt Gorney, Marta Gober, Tom McBride, and Bill Randolph. IMDb score of 6.1, Rotten Tomatoes score of 29%. Budget $1.25 million. But box office 21.7.
There you go.
Certified hit. And
Yeah.
that's why there's 12 of these, right? Something
Yeah.
like that.
I was thinking they've tried I know at least once, but I think they're trying again. They're trying to reboot Friday the 13th, and I don't think it could work anymore. I think this is something that was specifically for its time period in the late 70s, early 80s.
Is it more you're thinking about like summer camp?
Yeah, not so much that. It's just the slasher genre itself is kind of dated. I know Scream had some success with the fifth film. They're doing another one, but that kind of turned it on its head. Where what's good about Scream is it plays to the time period that it's being shot in.
Yeah.
Jason doesn't have that luxury, right? Because they kind of shoehorned him into specifically being he's going after horny kids at a camp. So you can't. I don't think there's really that fear anymore. Right? That's kind of gone. The boogeyman is no one's afraid of that anymore. And overall, the slasher it's kind of played out. So I don't think it's gonna be. Like, how would you turn it on its head? How would you revitalize Jason?
No, I thought I think there's a lot of complaints about horror remakes in general, but I always will defend that the remake of Friday the 13th is actually a solid movie. And that was
Oh, it's just
2009. So that's
Okay.
already 14 years ago, which is incredible. But yeah,
What?
everybody's all obsessed with this story in Idaho about those kids that were killed in the middle of the night. That's kind of a slasher story right there.
Is this the what's the guy's name? I can't remember. Mark
Co-
something. I don't know.
Probably.
I'd have to look it up. But yeah, but then that's not Jason, right? That's a real person. Jason is this zombie creature that again, he's omnipresent. He could be anywhere he could be everywhere all at once.
But everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
You can that'd be the first time I've said that title without stuttering, by the way. What I am saying is that I think the concept of what happened in those murders could be, a plot setup for like nowadays slasher flick, in the sense of most people today are worried about, or at least people I know around, where I live are just worried about like, this boogeyman thing that's going to break into their house and murder them. So they got to put 1 million locks on the door and have a gun by at all time,
Mm-hmm.
So, the slasher of nowadays would be somebody that would do that. Maybe like there's got to be one that happened. Maybe like, I guess Us, like, I haven't seen it, so I'm not like solid in that comparison. But
Us was more, there's doppelgangers essentially.
Yeah.
The underground.
Yeah, but it's sort of somebody invading when people are in a house.
There is the home invasion aspect of that movie.
Yeah, or like a Funny Games or
Funny Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian
like
Koberger, by the way, that's the guy's name, Brian Koberger.
That's where the slasher genre has to go. It can't be summer camp. I think that's the main thing that's missing is that you can't do Chopping Mall, you can't do summer camp because those things are foreign to kids.
I think Chopping Mall would be better because that has to do with AI.
Right, but is it foreign to kids or is it we're just 30 in our mid 30s?
No,
are we saying that kids don't go to summer camp? I feel like kids go to summer camp still.
Yeah, but it's not like
I think even
because of these movies that I think it was more in the zeitgeist than it is now.
Maybe. I even think having this at a summer camp answers the main problem of a slasher flick is the existence of cell phones.
Yeah, that's true.
Summer camps get rid of that. Like, no cell phones at summer camp. Sorry, you gotta leave them with your parents.
Or there's no service.
Yep.
I think what works better in my mind is you take away the supernatural aspect.
This one doesn't have a supernatural aspect.
No, Friday the 13th Part 2 doesn't.
Right.
But Friday the 13th in general does. Everything after 2, he becomes unkillable, right? Essentially.
I think the supernatural so this one ends
He comes back.
He comes back. He survives the machete.
Right.
Not necessarily supernatural.
He goes to hell at one point.
Well, yes, and that's 9, I think. But
yeah.
So, but there you can argue that him coming back for a third one isn't supernatural. I don't 100% remember how it leaves off from 3 to 4.
He gets an axe in the head.
So that is probably supernatural. Definitely. So 5 isn't Jason, so that's not supernatural. 6 is 100% supernatural. Like they literally resurrect him.
Yes. Yeah, that's the lightning bolt.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So everything from then on, at least, is 100%. I don't remember how they explain 3 to 4.
They pull like a Halloween 2. They take him away in the ambulance, and then I think he just wakes up in the ambulance and kills the drivers, and then he goes back on a tear.
Yeah.
What I was saying, like if you wanted to reboot it, essentially, I would want to take out the supernatural part of Friday the 13th because that's what's good about, again, Scream. It's a real person. It's a regular person. I don't know what they're doing with Scream 6. Essentially, hopefully it's not supernatural, but I don't know. Right now, what's popular with horror right now? It's usually like demons and strange entities, right? Like ghosts.
Yeah,
are
usually
kind of big.
the Conjuring franchise.
Yeah, spirits and stuff, right? Like I think Smile, that has to do with a demon like entity that was pretty good. But I mean, X is a slasher movie that was good.
Yeah.
Very self-contained.
That'd be set in a time period.
Yeah, right. And Pearl, I heard, I haven't seen it, but Pearl, I've been told. I know Anthony, you really liked it. That's set in the 40s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because of the one problem Ant mentioned, that slasher films require the cell phones not being around.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Like maybe if you had Jason in a time period kind of thing, that could be interesting. But it's hard to rewrite Jason because he's so ingrained in pop culture as this zombie-like monstrosity who is nigh unkillable.
I mean, same problem with Halloween. You know.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why it's
yeah. But I'm 100% in agreement with you. We need to give Jason access to a time machine.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that idea. Just Jason killing through time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You're 100% right. And I feel as if we talked about it where you just have to really embrace the campiness of him.
Yes.
And go like full throttle into it. And don't make it serious.
Just let him kill sexy teens throughout history.
Let him kill like Mark Antony. Right? He was a sexy.
What
sexy
if he's one of the senators that kills Caesar?
That'd be right. Yeah, he's the one that starts it. A2 Jason. That'd be great.
That's the only reason why it happened. It was like, oh well, he's doing it too. Guys?
Are we calling Jason the Forrest Gump of history?
Oh
no,
Forrest Gump is also the Forrest Gump of history.
But I guess like ancient history.
Sure. I would just be fine with Jason being a legitimate quantum leap person.
That would be so fun. Just getting sucked into different time periods.
What's the Lost Colony? Is that Jamestown?
No, Roanoke.
Roanoke, yeah. That'd be great. He shows up to Roanoke. He's the reason they disappear. He just slaughters the fuck out of them.
Oh, that's so good. How does that not? Yeah, that's got to be made. Just Jason.
The other option that's a little more fun for that is Predator.
Predator is great. They showed that with Prey.
Prey, yeah. That's basically that, yeah.
Now, when do we get the Predator versus Jason?
You got to set it up with this time travel one, and then you bring that in.
That's good, right? Because like, say Jason shows up in colonial times, right? Like the Roanoke thing. Like maybe you have like Jason slaughters the villagers, the settlers, and then at the end you just hear the click, click,
yeah, and then that ripple effect.
The eyes flash. Like, oh shit, it's the fucking Predator, dude.
Boom. Next movie, Jason versus Predator.
Yeah, I love it. So what you start Friday the 13th, Jason in time, right? Or Jason through time.
Yep.
And then Jason or Predator versus Jason.
Yeah.
And then who knows where you go from there, really?
Yeah. Where else would you send Jason?
So I feel as if you could probably get him. You could probably get him in like medieval times, right? Because there was a lot of like witchcraft and all that. There was what's the word I'm looking for? Where people were pretty much afraid of what they weren't sure of.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So like, there's a curse upon this kingdom.
Very superstitious.
Superstitious, yes. Very superstitious time. Like, we've angered Jesus or we've angered the Lord, and he's wreaking his vengeance upon us. And it's just really Jason. You know what would be good? Because I just watched The Northman. And have either of you gentlemen seen The Northman? I don't want to spoil. Okay.
Yeah.
Mark,
don't worry about it then.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So like towards the end of it, Skarsgård kind of goes on a tear in this village, and he makes it look as if there's a vengeful spirit that's being loosed upon the village. You could do something like that. Like there's this vengeful spirit.
Ancient Rome, gladiators.
That'd be hilarious, right? You just you put him out there, and these guys are just stabbing him with a pitchfork, lopping off their heads. And they would remark about his hockey mask. Like, it's a strange helmet you have there, visitor, and then they just go after. I don't know how they spoke in ancient Rome.
Probably Latin.
Yeah, true. And Jason just has no clue what they're talking about. Boom, kills him. Ancient Rome is good. I like the colonial period. I like you could put him anywhere.
That's a V, not a U.
Now, would you put him? What if he met Jesus? What if he killed Jesus?
Oh man, I'd write it. No one's gonna let us shoot it though.
No,
It's just like the reverse of somebody using a time traveler to kill Hitler. Jason's going back and killing all the good people in history.
Or just anybody, like anyone who's there. Like he shows up in the garden. Jesus.
I picture it being Bill and Ted's like telephone booth, right?
Yes.
And he has no idea what he's doing with it.
Yeah,
He's
Right, he
just
just shows
smashing buttons, and he just winds up at these places like it's all happenstance.
Definitely, because he's a brainless monster.
Yeah.
So you could put him in the Wild West. You could put him in feudal Japan. You could put him literally anywhere, and it works because there's so many. Obviously, there's a ton of historical figures. You could have him riding with friggin' Genghis Khan. Just like for some reason, they just harness the power of Jason, and he helps take over all of Asia.
Oh, yeah. Was it Rasputin who they said they had to kill like 6 or 7 times?
Yeah. Are we saying he's Rasputin?
Or it's Rasputin versus Jason? Jason like stabs him and he comes back.
Ah, that's a good matchup. You know what that is? That's an Asylum movie waiting to be made.
Well, if anybody from Asylum is listening to this podcast, we've just pitched excellent movies.
We've just set your lineup for the next decade.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Now all you need to do is get the rights to Jason Voorhees.
That's the problem. I was just thinking that they would have to come up with a Jason-like figure. Kevin.
Yeah.
Here's Kevin.
Right, you guys want to get into the plot?
Well, now I kind of just want to keep riffing on Jason through time, but sure.
Yeah. Is it Altamont? He's the one that stabbed that dude.
He's the one that kills Abraham Lincoln in the theater.
Or what if he stops John Wilkes Booth from killing Lincoln?
Well, he kills John Wilkes Booth and then,
kills
Lincoln. Like Lincoln's like, "Oh, thank you so much," and then just stab right through the chest.
That's an M. Night Shyamalan twist.
Yeah. I would like that. Or we could put him in. He's the one that killed Sharon Tate. It wasn't the Manson family. It was Jason Voorhees.
Oh man!
And then Manson just took credit for it.
All right, Dan, what do you got for us this week?
Oh, all right. So down to business. Please go over to geekvibesnation.com. Everyone, go to geekvibesnation.com. and search the top 10 with Tia. She's a very good friend of ours on this podcast. Her and her co-host Brittany run down their top 10 list of the week. So if that's something that you would enjoy, please go check it out. Tell your friends, download it. Again, that's geekvibesnation.com, top 10 with Tia.
Okay, great. And we are going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to some messages from friends of the podcast. So we will be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Steve.
And this is Adam.
And we're part of the Hop Nation USA podcast.
Pittsburgh's #3 craft beer podcast.
Join us every Friday for new beer reviews.
We'll talk about the news, history, and homebrewing.
Plus, we'll sit down with the best brewers and industry personalities that'll have us.
So whether you're a casual drinker, a hazy boy hophead,
or even if you're a whale hunting cellar hoarder,
just search Hop Nation USA on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher and join the nation.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. It's me, George, from the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest at least. We've talked about groundbreaking classics like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Alien, but we've also got a lot of great ones coming up, including some very fun guests like Len Kabaczynski of Swamp Zombies and Red Letter Media fame, Caroline Williams, the star of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and Chase Williamson from John Dies at the End. So make sure you're subscribed to the best little horror house in Philly, and I'll see you boils and ghouls over there.
And welcome back. Now it's time to get into plot 4, Friday the 13th, Part 2. We open on a kid named Jesse playing in some puddles when his mom calls him into the house. Not far behind him, a person walks up to a house, and inside, Alice from the original movie is sleeping, having nightmares that are conveniently scenes from the first movie in case you never saw it. With a jump scare of Jason coming out of the water, which kind of confuses that scene because you leave the original thinking that's a dream.
Yeah. This movie does a much better job than, say, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2, where the entire first 45 minutes of the movie is just a recap of the first Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yes.
So this truncates it much better.
Yeah. After 5 or so minutes, Alice wakes up in time for a phone call from her mom. They argue about how Alice is handling the stress of the events from the previous movie. Alice wants to be left alone, and her mom is worried about her. She hangs up, mills about the house for a bit, takes a shower, then the phone rings again. This time it's not her mom, and whoever it is hangs up without saying anything. Alice starts to get nervous and locks the door, then looks around the house for anything out of the ordinary. One of the windows is wide open, so she gets a pair of scissors for a weapon, and a cat jumps through the window. Alice goes to open the fridge to feed the cat, but she sees a decapitated head in the fridge. She screams, and then someone comes behind her and stabs her in the temple with an ice pick. And then credits. I have no idea whose head that was.
I was just going to ask, was that the mother's head or just a random head?
It could be the mother's, because the mother was decapitated, obviously.
Right.
And it's 5 years later that we see what it looks like decomposed.
Right.
So, yeah, let's say it's the mom's.
Okay.
It's a weird thing to do, though, if you're Jason.
100%. Why would you carry your mom's head around and then put it somewhere just for the sight? You know what I mean? Like just for the scare.
Yeah. It's an odd move.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like something Jason would do.
Yeah. You think he would keep his mom's head with a little more care. It's like, oh, this is going to get her good.
Right. I'm going to set this up perfectly. The cat's going to jump through the window, get the first scare, and then I know she's going to open up the fridge.
She's going to be hungry sometime.
Right. It's only a matter of I just have to wait her out.
We come out of credits with a pair of teens driving a big pickup truck, and they stop at the Exxon station from the original movie, and they run across the street to use the payphone to call their buddy to get directions to the camp. The time it takes to get on the phone, Crazy Ralph comes by to tell them that they're doomed, just like all the others, and then their truck gets towed. They chase the truck down the street until they come upon their buddy Ted, the one that they were on the phone with, and he told the guy from the gas station to tow their truck as a prank. So they load up the truck and they head to camp. They have to stop when they come across a tree in the middle of the road. While Ted and Jeff move that tree, Sandra goes wandering and comes across a sign that reads Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, so this whole segment here was essentially where I was having that flashback. I'm like, did we watch this movie already? And then you saying that we watched part 1, I'm like, oh, they probably obviously shot in the same locations.
Same location, very similar sort of opening to this.
Yeah. So
Ted says that's Camp Blood, which is on the same lake as the camp they'll be at. He then ushers them both back to the truck quickly, saying they don't really want to know about Camp Crystal Lake. And someone watches them as they get back in the truck and leave. At the camp, Paul, the head counselor, rings a bell to call the counselors in. They all gather around, including one girl in a Mickey Mouse t-shirt named Terry, who gets slingshot in the butt with rock by Scott, who also might be a vampire, by the way he looks.
I never thought of that.
And parents are worried about how kids dress today.
Yeah.
The cameraman knew what he was doing in this scene.
Yes.
I think the cameraman was just being a perv and shooting her butt, and the director was like, "Yeah, let's roll with this. Let's see where this goes."
It's like, we got the shot.
Yeah. Oh, we were rolling? I didn't know. Do you want me to say my lines? No, we're good. We're good.
Yep. It's like we're ahead of schedule now. Paul goes on to talk about how serious a job being a camp counselor is. And he talks to these kids like they're like a super group of counselors. He's like, oh, you guys are from all different camps coming to this one.
He assembled the Avengers of camp counselors.
Exactly. Or like the traveling Wilburys of camp counselors.
I think that's probably more in line with the times.
Which one's Jeff Lynne?
Oh, probably the guy who wears the goddamn bowler hat. What was his name? Scott or something like that. Hold on, what was his name? I gotta look it up. Hold on. Ted. No, not Ted. Who is he? Jason? Jeff. It's Jeff. He wears that stupid bowler's hat.
Jeff is the one that he's banging Sandra, right?
Yeah. It's not even a bowler hat. I think it's like a New
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a Newsies hat.
It's a Newsies hat. Yeah, he's the Jeff Lynne.
Oh, that's fitting because his name is Jeff.
There you go.
Paul goes on to talk about how serious job it is. Meanwhile, Crazy Ralph is riding his bike to the camp on a bicycle as a red Volkswagen drives past. Paul continues his speech until that red Volkswagen pulls up right in the middle of the camp, and it's Ginny, Paul's assistant head counselor. Paul immediately calls her into the office, scolding her for being late when she's supposed to be setting an example for the other counselors. She blames it on car trouble, and she tried calling, but the phones aren't working yet. He accepts the apology, but mostly it's because they're fucking. So they both go back with the rest of the counselors, and Paul finishes his speech while Ginny tries and fails to start her car. After his speech, Paul takes a look at the engine, and black smoke shoots out, completely covering him, and then the car starts up.
It's strange. You never would imagine that Friday the 13th would write a tailpipe gag that would really make you think.
I know.
And this movie does the one thing I always ask for. Give us a, one sentence short little explanation at why something happens like later in the movie. Like they could have about the car.
They set it up perfectly.
Yeah. They didn't need to like have a big long thing. Oh man, my car is broke, blah blah blah. Nope, just show it sputtering down the road, the black smoke, she says her car's sick. That's all we need to know. And then when it comes back later on, there's no questioning why it happened.
That's filmmaking 101.
Yep. And a lot of places don't do it.
At night, the counselors sit around a campfire as Paul tells the story of Jason Voorhees and makes the claim that some people say that Jason still haunts the woods, and the girl that survived the events at Camp Blood disappeared 2 months after, that being Alice. Jason wants revenge against those that killed his mom. We also find out that this has been 5 years since the events of the first movie, which I think is the first mention of this. Then Ted pops up in a mask and a loincloth and a spear, causing everyone to jump in fright. Then Paul says that all of this is bullshit, so he doesn't want to hear anything more about Jason for the rest of camp. Counselors retired to the meeting room, hanging out, doing things like arm wrestling, chess, dancing, while someone looks on from the windows.
I love the really early handheld video game stuff.
Yeah, this is super early.
Yeah.
I think it's like hockey and football, right?
Yeah, it's like the Tiger Electronic, whatever.
Tiger Electronic,
sort of thing. I don't know if it's specifically Tiger, but it's those type of football hockey games,
Yeah. Jenny bests Paul at chess, and then she says she's off to bed. Meanwhile, Sandra's trying to convince Jeff to go sneaking around Camp Blood to see if the rumors are true. And Jenny gets changed and hears a knock at the door to her cabin. When she answers it, no one is there. By the time she turns around, Paul manages to sneak into the cabin and touches her on the shoulder, making her jump. And they start making out. There's someone outside watching them, but it's not Jason, it's Crazy Ralph. But Ralph winds up getting strangled by someone who is probably Jason with a wire around a tree. And in the morning, post-coitus, Ginny wakes up to a message from Paul to watch out for bears written in lipstick on her mirror. So then we definitely know that Ginny is not the virgin final girl.
Yeah.
They really play up the idea of bears in this movie.
Yeah. I wonder why.
It's mentioned twice, and then when they find the dog in the woods, they insinuate that it's a bear or that it's a wild animal.
Some sort of an animal. Yeah. And then the vampire dude gets caught in a bear trap.
Yeah, there you go. So they really are they trying to make the connection that Jason is bear-like?
I don't know. He does kind of just stumble around the woods like an idiot.
Right, he lumbers around.
Yeah, he is a big goon in this movie. I don't know. And then she takes everyone on a jog through the woods and later a hike as someone looks on from the trees. For some reason, the dog has made the trip and is going on the hike with these counselors.
I do like that they let the kid in the wheelchair taunt them and didn't have some problematic retort back to him.
He flips him the finger, right? That's not.
Yeah, but
that's nothing wrong with that, really.
No, you would do that to somebody that was standing, not in a wheelchair.
But he does make the comment that he's letting women beat him. So
yes, that. Well, I guess.
Does he get a pass because he's handicapped?
He's
handicapable.
He's handicapable. Although we don't see him do a goddamn thing.
He's in training.
For what?
They never say.
For arm wrestling, right? Doesn't he win in arm wrestling twice?
He's pretty good at arm wrestling.
Because it's all that upper body strength.
All the upper body strength.
When you lose your lower half, you automatically gain all strength in the. It's like when you go blind, right? Your hearing becomes better.
Yeah.
So that's you lose. So if he were handicapped from the waist up, he could probably squat like 600 pounds.
Right. You know, one thing that he's not good at is picking up signs, though.
He's terrible at it. Oh my goodness.
Because what's her name? Terry? Terry is down to fuck the entire movie. This movie's horny as fuck.
But she's awful at flirting herself. She's like, "Oh, what game do you want to play? The one with the puck."
Yeah, I didn't get that one.
What is that? Because it rhymes with fuck?
I guess.
Probably.
Mark, you're a hockey guy. Is there anything sexy about a puck?
I mean, it depends on where you put it. So
Oh, boy.
Oh, jeez, Mark. I was not expecting that answer.
Damn, Mark. I didn't realize you were going to be blue on this podcast.
I don't know where you could fit a puck. It's such a bad shape.
That's the joke there.
Where are you going to put it? You
just haven't tried hard enough.
Yeah. That's why I gave up on hockey when I was young. I didn't know what to do with the puck.
All right, guys. We then cut to to the counselors barbecuing some hot dogs. There is an element of this movie of like the smash cuts to certain things. So like here, the dog comes upon Jason, we assume, and then it smash cuts to hot dogs on the grill.
I like that. Yeah.
And then I think it's when Terry's the one in the Mickey Mouse shirt when she finds with a guy after he's strung up and his neck is slit with a machete. She like basically screams directly into the camera, and then it cuts to the bar with the guitar player playing. It is an interesting kind of thematic element of this, of like those almost comedic smash cuts to other things going on.
The movie definitely has some interesting visuals for the budget that it had.
Yeah.
I remember the hot dogs with the muffin, which I don't know if it is muffin, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember. It is muffin, then it smash cuts to that. There was another really good scene. They do a pretty good job of imposing Jason's mother over Ginny. Really, at the very end they do a good job of kind of putting Mrs. Voorhees' head on Ginny as she wears the spoiler alert, by the way. I apologize. But when Ginny puts on the mother's sweater, I thought that they did a pretty good job of kind of like the amalgamation there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty good. But there's also a weird cut where who's the kid in the wheelchair?
Mark.
Yes.
So when Mark is falling down the stairs backwards, like the camera does this zoom in, and the screen goes white, and then it goes back to the bar.
Yeah.
So that one I didn't quite understand, but it has some good shots in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's well directed for the type of movie it is.
Definitely.
Terry goes looking for Muffin and then gets called back for lunch. And Ginny goes back to the cabin and puts the chainsaw away and feels like she's being watched, but nothing comes of it. There's also the chainsaw. Does it? It never makes another appearance, does it?
It does. Briefly.
Does it?
Yes, briefly. When Ginny first encounters Jason in the cabin.
Yeah.
Okay.
She pulls it out, but it's only used for maybe 3 or 4 seconds.
Okay. I totally overlooked that.
She disarms Jason and then immediately drops it and runs, which is what you want to do when you're being, you've disarmed your assailant. You also want to disarm yourself,
right, to
make it a fair fight.
Yeah, it's like it's like what's her name in Halloween Kills when she drops the pitchfork.
Right. Oh, Grenier.
Judy Greer. Yeah.
Judy Greer. Yeah. Yeah. That's smart. That's the first thing they tell you to do in self-defense class. Once your assailant has been unarmed, drop whatever it is you have, and then just like stand there and wait, see what happens.
Yeah. All the counselors go to the lake to swim, but Sandra convinces Jeff to go off and see if they can find Camp Blood. And once you know it, our mysterious stalker is following them. Sandra and Jeff come across a pulverized dog that looks an awful lot like Muffin, right before a sheriff comes up behind them to question what they're doing around Camp Blood. Sheriff takes Sandra and Jeff back to the camp, and he scolds Paul because they basically want to keep the events of 5 years ago in the past, and they don't want no nosy kids sneaking around where they don't belong. Paul sends Jeff and Sandra away, and Sheriff gets mad that they aren't being reprimanded in any sort of way, and then he leaves. The sheriff leaves. He sees someone and goes stomping into the woods after him. Eventually comes to a rundown shack. He goes inside and starts nosing around. Eventually sees something that causes him to exclaim, "Oh my god," right before the mysterious person hits him in the back of the head with a claw hammer. At night, the counselors have a group dinner. Paul announces that if the counselors want one last night in town to go drinking, they can, but he makes Sandra and Jeff stay behind as punishment for wandering off, and a few others also decide to hang back. Paul and Ginny, along with a bunch of others, head to town as the others hang back. Terry decides to go for a walk by herself down by the lake and decides to go skinny dipping. Back at the cabins, the other counselors hang out. Mark, the guy in the wheelchair, and Jeff arm wrestle till Sandra unsubtly tells Jeff that she's ready to fuck. So Jeff and Sandra go off to fuck. Mark and Vicky hang around playing 1981 Game Boys. Vicky trying to subtly tell Mark that she's also looking to fuck. Meanwhile, Terry comes back in from the lake to find that her clothes are missing, and Scott pops up from behind a tree with her clothes and chases after him to get her clothes back. Eventually, he winds up stepping in a bear trap and gets pulled up and starts swinging from a tree. Terry tells him that she has to go back to the camp to get a knife to cut him down. But while she's gone, someone comes up to Scott and cuts his throat with a machete. When Terry comes back to see Scott's throat cut, she screams. In town, Ginny, Paul, and Ted are getting nicely drunk as Ted tries to hit on the bartender. They start talking about Jason and whether or not he's real. Ginny goes on about the prospect of Jason being out in the woods looking for revenge. Back at camp, Sandra and Jeff are ready to fuck, which is weird because they were ready to fuck about 20 minutes ago. Vicky asks Mark about his wheelchair. Mark tells her it was a motorcycle accident, and while his doctors say that it might be permanent, he plans to prove them wrong. Then Vicky drops another not-so-subtle hit that she's not worried about whether his legs work, but more about if his dick works. Eventually, Mark gets... Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then, his response is sort of like, no one's ever complained to that extent.
Yeah.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Eventually, Mark gets the hint, and he and Vicky decide to fuck, but she goes to get ready, and that basically means she's going to put on underwear that looks like a trash bag and get a candle out from her car.
Oh, I wrote that down. She picks the most unsexy pair of underwear that you could possibly have, and she's so confident in it.
Yeah, she's like, it's like brown and shiny.
Yeah. Oh, it covers everything.
Yeah, she was like she was wearing like black underwear previous. It was like, just go with those, girl.
Yeah, stay with that. You were perfectly. Stop digging. You struck oil. You were perfectly fine.
Yeah, women, right?
Yeah, I think that was the classic example of you overthinking things.
Yeah.
Unless you know that for some reason he likes ugly underwear. Like, this will really get him going.
So hideous. That's how they stayed under $2 million, though.
That's a good point.
Cheaping out on the underwear.
Well, yeah, because Terry doesn't even wear a bra throughout her time in the movie. So
pretty much, you got to cut those corners when you can.
That's right. That's just being smart.
Yeah, economical.
Yeah, perfect.
And then it starts to rain. Mark goes out looking for Vicky and winds up getting a machete right to the face. And Sandra and Jeff finish fucking.
Would you say that the Mark kill is that probably the most iconic for this movie?
I would say so. Yeah.
And it also gave me flashbacks of being a reverse Mac and me.
Yeah,
sure.
Right. You just needed the explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other one is Sandra and Jeff, but that's really just a play on the Kevin Bacon kill, right?
Yeah, the arrow through the neck, right?
Yeah. From under the bed. And this one stabbing with the spear through the bed.
And you don't even see it. You just see the spear go through, right? Like you see the end result. You don't see their faces when it happens or anything like that.
Yeah. But then our mysterious stranger picks up Ted's spear, walks up the steps, and stabs Jeff and Sandra right through with it, and it goes through the bed. At the bar, Paul and Ginny finish up and decide to head back, leaving Ted to continue drinking. Vicky makes it back to the cabin and is looking for Mark, but Mark isn't answering. So she winds up going to Sandra and Jeff's room, and when she goes to wake one of them up, Baghead Jason pops up and slashes her with a kitchen knife and then runs her through. First time we see his Baghead.
It looks so bad.
And the idiot only cut one eye hole.
Yeah, what was he thinking?
He's got all the time in the world. Let's get a second eye hole.
I wonder if it was for the reveal at the very end where he's essentially like deformed.
Yeah.
Right? So one eye is at a different level than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that was their way of like, oh, this will really. And it's a unique look.
Yeah.
But in terms of functionality, it's lacking.
Yeah. And Paul and Ginny make it back to the camp as Jason starts moving the bodies. They find the bed covered in blood and they go back downstairs to look for everybody. As they look, Baghead Jason comes out of the shadows and tries to run Paul through with the spear. But Paul turns around in time and there's a scuffle. Then Baghead Jason pops up and starts chasing Ginny, who manages to hide in the bathroom. Jason sneaks around, smashes through the window, so Ginny runs and winds up hiding in the kitchen. Then Jason busts through the door with the pitchfork, so she runs again. Winds up coming across Crazy Ralph's body before she climbs out of the kitchen window, tries to escape via her Volkswagen. But the Volkswagen won't start again, so Jason gets enough time to climb up on the roof and rips it open with the pitchfork, paying off the fact that the car won't start. So begins a chase through the woods where Ginny hits Jason in the dick and they both stop around through the woods like a couple of goons. Ginny manages to make back to one of the bunks and hides under a bed. Jason stomps around but doesn't find her, even though she winds up peeing herself.
Oh, I thought that was the mouse who peed.
I don't know. It was a lot of pee.
It makes more sense that she would have
I
peed
mean,
herself.
she peed a lot because she had jeans on, I think. So
What?
Maybe. Wait, are you saying she
No,
peed
'cause
because she had jeans?
no. The amount that they showed on the ground, it would have taken, I'm assuming, a little longer to make that much.
Oh, okay. I get. You're saying that it would have been more absorbent.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I thought you were just saying that the amount of pee was directly related to the fact that she was wearing jeans.
No. Meaning that it had to go through any kind of clothes. It wouldn't be that much pee on it.
Right. If she were wearing the short shorts, there's less of an area to travel.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I couldn't remember what she had on, but
Gotcha. So now that makes me question, why is the mouse there?
because that's what makes her pee.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, now that makes sense. Okay, because it almost seemed like something out of a Mel Brooks movie where a bunch of things would just come across while she's hiding from Jason, and all of these critters just come through trying to make her scream. And I guess the gag would be, you get a mouse, a spider, like a snake or something, and then like something really stupid comes by, and that's what makes her scream. Like what's something that's not scary at all, really? Like a cat or something. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, that's terrifying for some reason.
Yeah, but no, she just pees.
Terrible timing.
Yeah, right. Well, it's good. Well, she did drink all that beer.
What if Jason, like, instead of trying to kill her, just really humiliate? Like, oh, come on, really? Have some respect. It's disgusting.
Kill you anymore.
Yeah, this is just pathetic now.
Ginny thinks the coast is clear, but when she gets up from the bed, Jason is standing on a chair and tries to stab her with a pitchfork, but the chair breaks and he falls on his face like a goon.
He loses by pratfall.
So Ginny runs again and makes it to Jason's shack and barricades the door behind her. When she turns around, she sees an altar to Mrs. Voorhees, including her decaying head and her sweater on the table as Jason tries to break down the door with an axe. So she puts on the sweater, and when Jason breaks down the door, she talks to Jason as if she's his mother, tells him that his job is done and it's time for it to stop. All the while, she's raising a machete at him. He's listening to her until he sees his mom's head on the table, which is when he breaks the trance and blocks her machete swing with his pickaxe and hits her in the leg. Paul comes out of nowhere and fights with Jason, and Paul starts losing once again. But Ginny takes the opportunity to stab Jason in the chest with a machete, and he falls over dead. Paul carries Ginny back to the cabin, puts her down on the bed to look at her wound, but then they hear a bang at the door. So armed with the pitchfork and shovel, Paul goes to slowly open the door, and it's Muffin, not dead in the woods. But when Ginny goes to pick up Muffin, Jason comes crashing through the window and attacks her. But we then...
I needed that to be a freeze frame ending.
Yeah, that's not how these movies do it.
Nope.
Because then we then fade into the next day where she's being put in the back of an ambulance, unaware what happened to Paul, and we are unaware of how she survived. And then we go back to the shrine of Mrs. Voorhees. And that is the end of Friday the 13th Part 2. It is a weird ending.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if you saw in the trivia, but I was just looking it up, that the original ending was for when they zoom in, the eyes to open and her smile. And that was supposed to clue in that they had killed Paul or whatever, the one that was alive. But the director thought it was too fake.
Yeah.
So
I was waiting for the eyes to open.
Yeah. They look like they were made to open.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could tell that the eyelids were functioning eyelids.
Yeah.
It maybe it was a person in prosthetics.
That's what I was under the assumption. But yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming Paul's dead, but how she survives is who knows.
He just lets her go, I guess.
Yeah.
right? She was a worthy adversary.
And we'll never find out because also according to the trivia, her agent told her not to take the role in part 3.
Yeah.
Well,
It's such a hit and miss thing.
Yeah. I mean, what did Amy Steele go on to do?
I don't know. I can't blame someone's agent for that. You know, it's not like Friday the 13th wasn't a major franchise yet. It did well enough, but it wasn't like missing out on a mark in its heyday. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one thing she said, I think it was in there too. She said in an interview, like looking back, she wished she did do part 3 because she didn't get, as many roles,
Sure.
as the agent thought she was going to get, and she was basically out of acting. She said she would like to have had I'm assuming she didn't reference her, but I'm assuming she was thinking like Heather Langenkamp or whatever. Be like the iconic person tied to a series.
Yeah,
She worked for a while, like bits and pieces, but she worked.
Nothing major. I mean, she went back to horror in 1986 with April Fool's Day.
Okay. And then she did some stuff with it looks like she did some stuff with some Friday the 13th fan films.
Yeah.
Victim No More is what is that? Victim No More.
I don't know, it looks like a short.
Maybe a short. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Robbie is a young man whose family members are surviving victims of serial killer Jason Voorhees. He sets out to prove to his loved ones that Voorhees is dead, that the infamous Crystal Lake campgrounds are now safe. So it's a fan film, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So she worked, but I guess she just missed out on that Friday the 13th bandwagon.
Yeah. I mean, they made so many of them.
It's true.
Realistically,
how much longer would she have survived? Right, because they killed off Alice.
Right, they kill off Alice in the first one. You can assume that maybe she doesn't make it out of the third one, but if she does, then maybe she does like a Heather Langenkamp. She's gone. She does other things, and then she comes back for a later one. Yeah,
it could be. Yeah, we'll never know.
All right.
One thing, the story behind the other girl, again, stuff that got out of it because she had like a stalker to try to break in her apartment and stuff. So she
broke up there a little bit there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry. So I just wanted to say I looked up a little bit, and the girl from the first movie just stopped doing acting after this cameo appearance because she was like stalked and somebody broke into her apartment or something over being obsessed.
It was Jason. Movie. We saw it. We saw Jason broke into her apartment.
Yeah. So that's why she didn't go past this movie. So I don't know if we can 100% use that for this girl, but it seems like everyone that got tied to being the girl in this movie had like some reason or other for not coming back.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right. Well, that is it for Friday the 13th Part 2. We're going to be right back with our final segment of the night, but you guys are going to listen to some ads so we can pay those bills, and we will be right back. And welcome back. And this week, we have Dan has a, segment for us, I guess. I don't know what to call this, but he's keeping us in the dark for this one. So, Dan, why don't you tell us what you want from us?
Sure. So, I figured this is more of like an open discussion, let's say, where we could share our thoughts freely. So there are no wrong answers here. But one of the things that we joke about on the podcast every now and then, like you'll hear us bring up the whole ACAB thing, right? So I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were. Does that saying, does it extend to movie cops, like say Men in Black?
Yes.
So the Men in Black are bastards.
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wipe people's memory.
Yeah.
Well, for the greater good.
That's what they tell you,
and it also
they believe
it protects the aliens, right? Because if people found out that there were legit aliens from outer space that are on Earth, don't you feel like most people would probably try to kill them or do something to them?
I mean, one of them runs meta now, so I don't.
Right. So think of all the hatred that would be spewed against the aliens that come from a different galaxy that are just trying to escape their intergalactic war.
Look, you could rationalize it all you want. The fact is that they without anyone's consent, wipe their memory. That's
Okay.
pretty shitty. Pretty shitty thing.
So all right. So what about the Green Lantern Corps?
I don't know much about them, but probably.
All right. So essentially, the Green Lanterns are they are space police, right? Where
They're
each
space bastards then.
they're
Are
what?
they
Space
Space
bastards.
bastards.
are they like the Nova Corps? Because
Well, Green Lantern Corps came first.
okay,
So essentially, the Green Lantern Corps, there is a Green Lantern sector of the universe, right? So like Hal Jordan polices Earth, and he helps safeguard Earth from alien invasion, right?
I mean, Sinestro was pretty sinister, so
It's in the name.
yeah, it's right in the
Yeah.
name, and no one never questioned him about that. So
Well, he's the one bad apple,
exactly, that's what they say about cops.
right? He's the one bad apple.
Everybody's covering for him.
If my argument would be, if anyone was the bastard, it would probably be the Guardians, the ones who watch the Guardians, essentially, like on Oa, I believe that's where their home base is.
No idea.
So they're usually pretty shady.
See,
But-
here's it.
But Hal Jordan's not shady.
We need to know what kind of union the Green Lanterns are running with. Like how powerful the union is.
Well, do you think are you in terms of they cover?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's one of the biggest parts of the statement of ACAB is that even if you are truly a good cop, what are you doing to prevent the bad cops from continuing to keep their jobs and things like that?
So I will say,
are you turning a blind eye to shady dealings?
I will say when Hal Jordan went crazy, the other Lanterns did go after him. They went to stop him. So they were going to hold him accountable. Now, I'm not 100% on board. Like, I don't know the extensive history of the Green Lanterns, but I know at one point, when Emerald City or Emerald Coast gets like wiped out in the comics, and Green Lantern tries to bring it back using a bunch of different Green Lantern rings. So he winds. I think he kills like a bunch of Green Lanterns. So he kills his own cops, his fellow policemen, essentially. So they go after him and they go to take. So there is some accountability.
I don't know. I feel like
he's also a part of the Justice League.
Bunch of cops. Batman's
So Superman?
Superman's cop.
Oh, I don't know if I can agree with that.
he's a super cop. One would say.
Superman's cop.
But he's literally the nicest superhero of all time.
Have you seen Man of Steel? He lets his dad die.
We don't count. That does not count.
The only person
And he snaps Zod's neck.
Again, it doesn't count. That's a bastardization.
Billions of dollars of property damage in Metropolis.
But he's hailed as a hero.
Yeah, the only person in comic books that's more cop is Captain America.
Captain America, huge cop.
And Superman.
No, that's not true though. That's not 100% true. Because Captain America, he was big on the civil rights.
Hey, Captain America punched Nazis. That's true.
Nazis, yeah. And he goes to bat for Falcon a bunch of times, and Black Panther. So he's very much an ally, I would say.
Well,
He's-
that makes
he's
him
definitely-
not a racist. That doesn't necessarily mean he's not a bastard.
Okay. They're not always exclusive, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
you could be one or the other.
No, if you're a racist, you're a bastard. But
Yeah,
if
oh,
you're
yeah,
not a
yeah.
racist, it doesn't mean you're not a bastard.
Right.
You know?
He's definitely like a goody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Superman
Has Captain America ever hit Peggy?
never. No way. I
You know,
sincerely doubt. But
40% chance that he does.
I don't think he's ever hit Peggy. I'd be very surprised. But in one iteration, he does become the Nazi version of Captain America, right? The Hail Hydra part.
Oh yeah, that was recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like
5 years ago.
Yeah, something like that, right? But Superman's nickname, one of Superman's nicknames, is the Big Blue Boy Scout.
Yeah. You know what Boy Scouts grow up to become? Cops.
Not necessarily.
I feel like there is a pipeline.
You think
of
so?
Boy Scouts, yes.
I would need to see the data for that. What is the I need the cold hard numbers that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see now with Men in Black, I feel like there's definitely a better argument because, like you said, the wiping of the memory, because that could be used for definitely nefarious purposes.
Yeah, and just the idea, the greater good is what they deem it to be.
Sure,
It's based on their own opinion.
that's true.
Like, yeah, it's like most laws. Most laws are based on the opinion of the ruling class, right?
Right. Well, they're but that's the thing with them. What, like, they don't serve a ruling class.
I
Or
don't know.
the government doesn't know about them.
I don't know. I think there's a corruptibility in an organization that thinks that they're working for the greater good
Yeah, there's always
without
corruptibility.
oversight. Without
Yeah.
oversight.
That's true, because again, the government doesn't even know about them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's 100%. There's always a chance of corruptibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could happen at any time. And they have literal alien technology at their lips.
Mm-hmm.
So that, who knows, what that could get into the wrong hands, obviously.
Yep.
Okay, so in my opinion, we could say that Men in Black, yes, but I don't think Green Lantern Corps counts. I don't think they get that.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the same problems exist.
Because there is oversight with them.
I don't know enough about the Green Lanterns.
You see, now we have homework. We have to go back and read the entire 50, 60-year history of the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, we need to make sure that there isn't an overpowerful union, you know.
Well, I think they all hold each other accountable, because again, when kind of get shady, Hal Jordan or Kyle Rayner or John Stewart, they like, hey, no, not on my watch, buddy, and they rally the other Lanterns to stop the Guardians.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, because I do know that the Guardians are kind of shitty at times, but the other Lanterns are very Kilowog is very, he's one of the Green Lanterns. He's it's like he cannot tell a lie kind of thing. So he's very beholden to justice, but I guess that justice is what you make of it, right? It's each person has a different form of justice.
Yeah.
But I will not bow on Superman. Superman is not a bastard.
When Superman takes a guy that stole someone's purse and yeets them into the sun, that's that's excessive force.
I don't know if there's a comic book where Superman has ever yeeted someone to the sun.
The purse snatcher shouldn't have resisted, Ant.
Yeah.
Or if he just complied. No, I don't think Superman's ever used excess. Usually Superman has to dial back his. There's a good Superman episode where he's fighting Darkseid, and he even, like, I think he makes a comment about how he always has to hold back, but he's like, now with you, I don't have to, and he just like unleashes.
Right,
but
he is a tool of the local police department, right? He's stopped more or less.
Yes and no. I think
he is stopping the crimes that have been deemed crimes by, again, a ruling class.
Sure. I guess it depends on, like, if he's stopping a bank robbery. I think, right, for the most part, if Superman's stopping a bank robbery, I feel like we're pretty much okay with that, right? Or if he's stopping a mugger or a purse snatcher.
Yeah, mugger's fine.
Yeah.
Banks are insured.
Right. But stealing is wrong. I think we come to that kind of murderers. He'll stop murderers.
Well, stealing, depending on the situation. That's the thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll go with that one. And then purse snatching, muggings, murderers. He'll stop murderers. He also stops world-conquering villains. Like, I think we could agree with that.
But again, we were taught in history books that America won Vietnam, and we weren't an invading army,
Right. We abandoned Vietnam, right, according to
isn't this the point of Red Sun?
Red Sun is if he lands on in Soviet Russia.
Right. So that proposes that he's doing what he thinks is right, just from a different perspective. So again,
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, in Red Sun, it takes a weird turn because it's never that he's going to conquer the world. in Red
Oh,
Sun.
no.
Like he never does that. But America sees this threat and deems we need to take him out. So
Right.
they start
Exactly.
making
But is he doing anything that's considered like that we would consider evil? Or is he just doing the same things he was doing in America, only this time he's doing it in Russia?
Yeah, I don't think he does anything evil in Red Sun. It's just he's in Russia, right? Uh,
So
I know
to your
Batman.
point,
Go ahead.
so to your point of like he stops evil other countries or whatever. That's like, well, isn't evil still in the eye of the beholder,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
I think the only time, other than Red Sun, where he's a tool of the government is The Dark Knight Returns, where Reagan basically uses him to fight foreign wars.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Reagan, cop,
Yeah, but that's The Dark Knight Returns.
right?
That's a different time, and then there's a whole list of things there. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, like for Superman to not be a cop, he would have to Dr. Manhattan, right? He would go off to Mars and just fuck off.
Yeah, you see, like Dr. Manhattan's a bastard,
Well, yeah,
right? Because he gets involved in Vietnam. But yeah, like Superman stays away from geopolitical things usually. He's very much just he's going to do what he thinks is right, and he's going to try to help people, and he stops invading aliens essentially. Like he fights Darkseid, he fights Brainiac, all these otherworldly threats, right? Steppenwolf, what have you. So usually I'd say he's on the up and up.
yeah. No, it's fine to have that opinion, but I mean, it still stands that all cops are bastards. It's ACAB, not some of cops are bastards.
Some
That's SoCab.
So yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Although they're technically not cops, right? The Men in Black are not cops. They're agents, which is a form of a cop, I guess, or it's the next level. But I wanted to see what you guys thought. To me, it was never black and white.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Dan.
No
It
problem.
was an interesting conversation. But
I'm glad that it took you guys no time to say anything.
cops. They're bastards. All right.
Yeah.
Alrighty. We're gonna get out of here. This has been Friday the 13th, part 2. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week. We'll have another episode. I think actually we should start with our we should start thinking about what our January movie of the month should be soon.
So
that'll
be that time.
Yeah. But that's for another day. Check us out on all socials, TikTamPod on Instagram and Twitter, and They Called This Movie on TikTok. That's it. That's going to wrap us up. The director of Friday the 13th Part 2 was Steve Miner. So, for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony Del Vecchio telling Steve Miner, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you? Thanks for listening to They Called Us a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TikTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Called Us a Movie.